we are going to kick off with the VENDLET webinar today. I'm just going to start off with a bit of housekeeping. My name is Harvey, and I'm going to be presenting today's VENDLET webinar. I'm going to try and keep it to less than 45 minutes. If everyone could stay muted, then that's going to make the listening experience good for everybody. We're going to have a couple of opportunities for questions during our session today. So as and when you have a question, pop it in the chat box and we'll get to as many as we can in the intervals. If any questions aren't answered during the session, we'll follow up by email and make sure you get all your questions answered. So what's the purpose of today? Why are we here? So you are going to have people that you deal with either in your care facility or in your caseload who present a challenge when it comes to moving and handling and repositioning on the bed, turning, etc. And this is one of the many solutions to moving and handling problems and pressure care, etc. So we're going to go through what the VENDLET is, how it works, and the ways it can be used, and also how you compare that to other alternatives that are on the market, how you specify this, when to specify it, when not to specify it. So let's jump straight into a demo. The VENDLET, the first thing to just clarify, it's not the bed. It's the side rail system that's attached to the bed. So this is a standard community-style profiling bed. We've removed the existing side rails and we've added the VENDLET side rails. So this top bar here is a motorized roller bar, where it's got the sheet wrapped around it. Underneath the top sheet, you've got a fitted slide sheet, so you've got a nice smooth surface, so there's no friction when we're moving from side to side. And we have a hand control, and that's in addition to your standard bed hand control. So the bed remains exactly the same, still got the hand control, still got all the functions. You've got the VENDLET hand control as well. So Ruben is going to help me out. He's going to be my service user for the day. So if he can jump onto the bed. Just going to lift the bed to a safe working height. So, first of all, on the hand control. So we've got a power button down the bottom. So just a double click to turn it on, and the lights turn on there. Then you have red buttons there and blue buttons. So you'll see a blue sticker here, and at the foot end, that's the roller bar that relates to the blue buttons, and red buttons correspond to the red roller bar, which is the other side. So we've got arrows there. So up button is going to lift the red side, so you can see the red side coming up there, and down is going to lower it. This button here, you can see that it shows an unrolling motion, so that's going to unwind the sheet off the roller bar, and the top button is rolling the sheet onto the bar. So what does that actually mean in terms of moving? So if I tighten the sheet on the blue side, it's going to bring Ruben across to me, a bit like a conveyor belt. So tighten the sheet on the blue side, it's going to bring Ruben across the bed laterally towards me. Why would you want to do that? So if it's a nursing situation when you need to take somebody's blood pressure, you can bring the arm right to the edge of the bed. Or let's say it's for feeding or for facial hygiene, I can bring Ruben right the way close to this side of the bed. Then I can carry out my task without leaning into the bed, which if I'm leaning into the bed, I'm both encroaching in his personal space, and it's also impacting my lower back and my posture. So I can bring him across this side of the bed. I can care for him at safe arm's length without encroaching in his personal space. When I'm done, I can just move him back into the middle of the bed. So that's lateral movement. when it comes to turning, go around this side so you can see it a bit clearer. If I lift this side rail all the way up, just press and hold till it goes up to the top and stops, we've then got a slope here. So if I bring Ruben across this side of the bed, it's going to initiate a turning motion. So first of all, bring him closer to me. Then I can prepare his position for a turn. So I can put that arm across his chest, and I'm going to move this arm away from his body so that his chest isn't going to trap his elbow and be uncomfortable. Then when I do the turn, I'm just going to go in one motion all the way over, keep going until his hips are upright, and then I'm just going to shift his top leg forward. So keep going all the way until the hips are upright. Just shift that top leg forward, and it's in the sideline position. So all the strain has been taken by the roller bars. Done no lifting, I've just shifted that top leg forward, just using gravity, help it move forward. And I can adjust the pillow, make it comfortable. Maybe adjust the upper body to make sure he's stable. So why do you want somebody in a sideline position? So you might be for personal care. If that's the case, we can lower this sidebar. And I could even use the roller bars to bring him closer to me. So again, I'm not leaning into the bed to do any of my tasks. The bed's at a nice working height, and he's nice and close to this side, so I can do all I need to do, and then move him back into the middle of the bed. And let's say I wanted to put in an incontinence product. This is called the Incollect. It's as you can see, it's an extra large incontinence sheet. So we can roll it onto itself, tuck it underneath, and then to roll somebody back into a supine position, it's exactly the same. So we can lift the blue side rail, and then just tighten the sheet onto the blue side, and it will return into a supine position. Slide that leg back down, lower the side rail, and you'll see the sheet has appeared this side and just pulls out the step. The reason for the extra large size, you can see it coming out here, is that when you then roll him off it, he's going to be rolling onto clean sheet. He's not going to be rolling onto the actual bed sheet and then soiling it when you're trying to take it out. It also means that you can, when you do roll him, you can cover the soiled area and make sure it's all properly contained. So this has been designed to work with the VENDLET, so it doesn't move around on the cotton. You can actually take 3 litres of liquid, which is quite a lot, quite helpful. So let's take that out. Just going to roll him back onto his side again. So again, put this arm across the body and that arm away from his body. I'm going to tuck this underneath so we can pull it straight out. There we go. And we can take out the soiled sheet and dispose of it appropriately. The other thing that we can do with the VENDLET is go into a prone position. Not often used, but some people prefer to sleep on their back, particularly pediatrics. So instead of moving the arm away from the body, you're going to make sure it's nicely tucked in close like that, so he rolls over it. And again, this arm on the hip like that. Again, we're going to raise the red side. One thing you can also see here is that you can do all the care from one side of the bed. I have been going around that side so I can show you easier how it works. But if there was a wall there, I wouldn't have to move the bed out into the middle of the room to get around it, because I can move him, roll him towards me using the VENDLET quite safely without any manual handling risk. So I bring him over to the red side. Just a loose hand on the hips, guiding as he comes over. There we go. And adjust the pillow. There we go. A lot of people like to sleep like that. And if, let's say, somebody has low core strength and you're trying to get a sideline position and they do go onto their front, it's not a problem. We'll just raise the side rail and can move them back into a sideline position, or even right back into a supine position. So I'll just come back over. There we go. Pillow back in. Every time you finish a care task, you're going to want to slacken the sheets off. So there's a couple of reasons for that. One is, so if I slacken the sheets off there. One is that when there's any movement, when the service user is moving, they're moving with the sheet, not against it. So that eliminates all the shear and friction. The other reason is so that we can keep all the profiling functions of the bed. So if this sheet was tight across the VENDLET, it wouldn't allow the backrest to come up. But because we've got a nice lot of spare sheet there, backrest can come up, no problem. I've deliberately left the knee break down because I want to demonstrate Ruben sliding down the bed. So I'm just going to fast forward the process. He's spent 2 hours watching TV and wriggling, and he's gone down the bed. So in a normal situation, you'd have to roll somebody, get a slide sheet underneath, and then get a colleague to come along, and then we'd pull him up the bed manually. With the VENDLET, we can do that without putting any strain on our lower back. We've got the slide sheet already there, and we can use the roller bars to help us. So I'm going to lower the backrest. And you'll see his feet are right tight up against the footboard and his knees are bent. So let's see how far up we can get him up the bed. We haven't got a roller bar at the top, so we can't just pull him straight back, but we can use the VENDLET, the side roller bars, to zigzag him up the bed. So we're going to make sure we've got plenty of slack here, and then just neaten the sheet up at the top of the roller, just guiding it with 2 fingers rather than pulling it, letting the VENDLET do all the work. So bring it over to this side, and then exactly the same on the other side. Make sure there's plenty of slack. Neaten the sheet up and tighten it up, guiding the sheet up to the top of the roller. Take them all the way over to the other side, and again this side, slacken the sheet off so that we can neaten up the sheet and guide it back on at the top of the roller as best we can. Normally twice each side will do it. We'll get them back into where he was before. So I'll just do once more on this red side. And there we go. So from his feet being right touching the footboard, they're now 6 inches back from the end. So that's the manoeuvres for the VENDLET. Do we have any questions on that? After this question session, we'll then go into the clinical reasoning when you would use it against other systems that are out there. So do we have any questions for now?
Yeah,
My colleague Lottie's going to read them out for me.
Okay, so the first one is, can you use the system as well if the bed is against the wall?
Yes, very good question. So let's say I wanted to roll Ruben for personal care, for getting dressed or whatever. So you saw me rolling him away from me, so that his back is towards me. If there was a wall there, I could do that as normal, but then I'd also want him on the other side. So I can raise this red side, and this time I'm going to roll him towards me. So prepare his position as before. So move this arm away from his ribs, put this arm across his chest, then exactly the same way, take him to that side, shift this top leg forward. So he's now in a sideline position. At the moment, he's too far across that side of the bed, but I can then tighten the sheet on the blue side, bring him towards me. Let's say I had a wound to dress here, for instance, then I can do that without leaning into the bed. I can get him dressed, or whatever the task is that we need to do, all from this side of the bed. And then returning him back into a supine position. Just raise the sidebar. Guide him back into a supine position. This is a system that's used a lot in rural areas where the service user is in a tiny little cottage and there isn't room to have a bed in the middle of the room. So this can be used with walls on 3 sides, and all the care can be taken care of on one side of the bed. Very good question. Have we got any others?
What is the safe working load, and does this work on a bariatric bed, or is that a special order?
Very good question. So the system can fit on 90% of profiling beds, community-style profiling beds, and that includes bariatric beds. The safe working load for this system, this is the V5S, and the safe working load on that is 200 kilos. So that's 31 stone. There is another version called the VENDLET Barry or the VENDLET V5S Plus. That will do up to 400 kilos, and that's 63 stone. The only difference with that one is there's more powerful motors in the roller bar. The sheets and the framework is exactly the same. So 31 stone for the V5S, 63 stone for the VENDLET Barry.
Is it compatible with a dynamic pressure care mattress?
Yes, very good question. Is it compatible with a dynamic mattress? The mattress we're using here is a foam mattress, just for ease of transport. Before the lockdown, I used to take this around to demo at different places. But yeah, most people that would qualify for a VENDLET would be on air alternating mattresses. As with all manual handling processes, we would advocate putting it onto static before any of the movements. But yeah, it's very much compatible with air alternating mattresses.
Can it be used when the bed is profiled, or does the patient always have to be supine?
That's a good question. I've used this in cases where people aren't able to lie totally flat because of a respiratory problem, or if they're carrying a lot of weight and they can't lie flat. There's a couple of restrictions. One is, so I'm going to profile I'm just going to lift the backrest. It can be used as long as the top of the backrest isn't higher than the roller bars when they're upright. So I've used this in a palliative care situation. It was a reasonably large person, end of life, respiratory problem, heart failure, and we couldn't lower her down any further than this. So when she was being cared for in bed, it was a lot higher, and when it came to turning, we would lower it down just as far as we could go, which was the top of the roller bars. Then we could do the turning. So as long as the mattress isn't higher than the top of the roller bars, then it can be used when it's profiled. And the same with the knee break. Hope that answers the question.
Do you know if the system fits onto any acute or hospital beds? If not, are you planning to chat with bed companies to take this to a hospital option?
Yes, good question. The V5S doesn't fit on an acute bed, just simply because the framework, the way it fits to the bed, is very different on acute beds. In terms of talking to bed manufacturers, this is probably a bit of a trade secret, but it's there is a VENDLET version that is being developed at the moment. It's a Danish company. The Danish research team are quite well advanced with an acute version. I guess it'll be coming out in the next 18 months or so, hopefully. But at the moment, not on community beds, not on acute beds, I'm sorry. It's probably 90% of community style profiling beds.
Last question is it easily removable for laundering?
Yes, good question. So let me quickly demonstrate that now. It comes with, depending on what package you go for, it comes with 3 turn sheets. This is the top cotton sheet here. That can be laundered up to 95 degrees and tumble dried. And the slide sheet underneath can be laundered up to 65 degrees. And it can't be tumble dried because it's a satin slide sheet. So I've unwound the sheet right away from the bars, and it can just be taken off with Velcro and replaced. So pretty simple, and then you just reattach the sheet with Velcro and wind it back on. Does that cover it? Is there any other questions?
No, that's it for the moment.
Good, okay. So the next part is talking about when you would specify the VENDLET and what the other systems are out there. So first of all, you've got tilting systems. A common misconception, or a common one common thing we come across, is that tilting systems are often called turning systems. So that's when you've got an inflatable platform underneath the mattress, which on an automatic schedule tilts from side to side for pressure relief. We would refer to that as tilting as opposed to turning. And they're absolutely brilliant for pressure relief when you've got, if you're trying to eliminate a night carer, for instance, or a regular manual repositioning program, because it does it automatically all by itself and you're just relieving pressure points from side to side. Where you would use that is if you're only trying to eliminate a night carer for repositioning. Where it's different to the VENDLET is that you haven't got the versatility of repositioning maneuvers. So it won't move somebody up the bed, for instance. And if you're trying to put somebody into a sideline position for inserting a sling or for personal care, something like that, with a tilting system, whilst it tilts them onto their side, they're still in contact with the mattress, so you can't get that access for your personal care or for your inserting a sling, etc. So if your challenges are more than just for pressure care, and that's when you'd use the VENDLET system. If you're just doing it for eliminating a regular repositioning system, repositioning program, then your tilting system might be a better way to go. The other alternative out there is more of a manual system. So again, an integrated turn sheet, slide sheet option, but it's either manually operated or it's used when you're attaching to a hoist. So the main advantages of those are that they're cheap. So if you're just doing it manually, it's a fraction of the cost of this because it's just sheets. But it's obviously still a manual process. If you've already got a hoist system in there, that's obviously part of your cost already spent. The drawbacks with that is it can be quite tricky to achieve the sort of positioning that you might be able to with the VENDLET. In terms of moving laterally, that's very, very difficult to do, and keeping people stable. And also, if you've got somebody in a sideline position, often you've got the slide sheet going right the way up to a hoist, and it's quite difficult to get the access you need. That said, they are a lot cheaper, and if you've got the hoisting system already in place, that might be a better option. In terms of just using the manual version, if the manual handling challenge is quite small, the person's small and they're quite compliant and easy to move around, then it might be a bit of an overspec to put a VENDLET in. So just consider how much of a challenge it is. So those are the typical alternatives that we come up against. So how do we put a case together to get hold of VENDLET? How do we go through our clinical reasoning? First thing is a cost-benefit calculator. The first thing that your commissioners or your managers are going to want to see is whether it's value for money. So if you're cutting down a care package, we've got a cost-benefit calculator which we're going to send around after this session, and it's also available on the website, so you can put in all the different care visits and how much they cost, how long they take, etc. It'll give you a total, and on the other side you'll put in what the cost would be and the care visits would be with the VENDLET, and it will give you a total for that, and it will also compare how long the payback time will be, and how much it's going to save you over a 1 year and a 5 year period. Also, the warranty on the metal parts is 10 years. So if you're recycling this, either in a care facility or with the local authority, the equipment service, whilst the initial outlay might be big, if you're recycling it, you're saving money year on year on year. So that's the costing side of it. In terms of clinical reasoning from a care aspect, you've got to think of both the carers and the service user. So someone that's perhaps anxious of somebody touching them, you can keep at a distance. You don't have to be somebody that's got behavior that's challenging and they're lashing out. Then you can stand back a bit because you've got the hand control, let the VENDLET do the work, and you can stay back a bit. So that's protecting your carer. If somebody's very dense, they've had a stroke or they're paralyzed or whatever, it's going to save you a lot of effort in doing the actual manual maneuvers yourself. You've got to present the alternatives. So have a look at the alternatives that we discussed. Sometimes with authorities, you have to put forward, you have to try all the alternatives before you get to the expensive end of the scale, even though you know that it's unlikely to work. Whereas if we put together a robust clinical reasoning first time round, we might not have to jump all through those hoops to start with. It will save time and ultimately money in the long run if we know that some of those other systems aren't going to work before we even try them. How do we get a VENDLET? So if you've got a service user in your care facility or in your caseload that you think would benefit from this, get in touch and we can go through all these clinical reasoning points. We can help you fill out cost-benefit calculators and other assessment forms that you might have to go through. We can guide you through that. If you think it's going to benefit somebody, then we can do a trial. So we bring a brand new system and install it onto your bed, train all the care staff, etc., and we'd leave it there for 2 weeks. After the 2 week period, once it's been given a fair trial, if it's been deemed to be successful, that brand new system will stay there on your bed and that you can keep it, that's yours. If not, we remove it, and that's all free of charge. So certainly get in touch if you've got somebody that you want to run a trial with, or I can actually bring this bed to you and we can hoist your service user into it and do the maneuvers to make sure that it is going to work for them. So that's a couple of ways we can work it. I'm conscious that we are running close to the time. We have got a bit of time for questions. Have we got any questions now, Lottie?
Yes. Can it be used to get someone from lying to sitting position on the edge of the bed?
That's a very good point. Yes. In terms of getting somebody into a sitting position, we can use both the bed function and the VENDLET function to do that. So I'm going to lower this side rail here. So first of all, I can sit Ruben up in bed. It might be that we need to get a turntable underneath him if he hasn't got that much strength. But let's assume he can turn. We can then swing his legs out of bed. So if you wouldn't mind doing that for me. So we had a turntable underneath there and perhaps a tubular slide sheet underneath his calves. So once he's there, we can lower the backrest. And lower the level of the bed. Then we can use the roller bars to power him out of bed. Like so. I trust that answers the question. Is there any others?
Yeah, just one further question. Would the service user be able to operate the turning system to alter position during the night independently?
Good question. We do have a number of self-users out there. Let's say it's somebody with MS who's got full cognitive ability, full capacity. They've just got lower body weakness. They've got all their finger functions, as it were. We can have two hand controls. So one down here for care staff. We can also have another one on a monkey pole or something like that, so somebody can use it themselves during the night. A lot of times for repositioning during the night, it's not so much a total sideline position. It can just be a lateral movement on the bed, which just moves pressure points enough to get comfortable again. Any other questions?
No, that's it.
That's it. Very good. So keep an eye out for the webinars that are coming up. We are moving into much more of a forum type thing. So we're going to discuss things like care for bariatrics. We're going to go into a lot more detail in terms of clinical reasoning, how to run through that. We've got an OT coming on, Jill Crichton, who will go through all of that. And we're going to have a falls forum on how and when to lift fallen people. So there's a lot of interesting content coming up over the coming weeks. So keep an eye out on the emails, keep an eye out on the website for those. At the end of this webinar, there's going to be my contact details are going to come up on screen. So if you have got a service user that you want to try this with, either for a trial or assessment, or even just a phone call to see if it's something that could be relevant, then certainly give me a buzz, send me an email, and we'll do our best to help you out. Thank you very much for joining this morning, and we will look forward to seeing you in future webinars.